the No Guitar Blues. The moment Fatso saw the group Los Lobos on the American Bandstand, he knew exactly what he wanted to do with his life: play guitar. His eyes grew large with excitement as Los Lobos ground out a song while teenagers bounced off each other on the crowd dance floor. He had watched the American Bandstand for years and had heard Ray Camacho and the Teardrops at the Romano Playground, but it had never occurred to him that he too might become a musician. That afternoon, Fatso knew his mission in life: to play guitar in his own band, to sweat out his songs and prance around the stage, to make money and dress weird. Fatso turned off the television and walked outside. Wondering how he could get enough money to buy a guitar, he couldn't ask his parents because they would just say, "Money doesn't grow on trees," or "What do you think we are, bankers?" And besides, they hated rock music. They were into the conjo music of Lydia Manzo and Flanco Jimenez in Little Joe and La Familia. And as Fatso recalled, the last album they bought was the Chipmunks singing Christmas favorites. But what the heck, he'd give it a try. He returned inside and watched his mother make tortillas. He leaned against the kitchen counter, trying to work up the nerve to ask her for a guitar. Finally, he couldn't hold back by any longer. "Mom," he said, "I want a guitar for Christmas." She looked up from the rolling tortillas. "Honey, a guitar costs a lot of money." "How about for my birthday next year?" he tried again. "I can't promise," she turned back to her tortillas, "but we'll see." Fatso walked back outside with a buttery tortilla. He knew his mother was right. His father was a warehouseman at Bervin's Rugs, where he made good money, but not enough to buy everything his children wanted. Fatso decided to mow lawns to earn money and was pushing the mower down the street before he realized it was winter and no one would hire him. He returned the mower and picked up a rake. He hopped on his sister's bike, his had 2 flat tires, and rode north to the nicer section of Francisco in search of work. He went door to door, but after 3 hours, he managed to get only one job, and not to rake leaves. He was asked to hurry down to the store to buy a loaf of bread, for which he received a grimy, dirty-caked quarter. He also got an orange, which he ate sitting at the curb. While he was eating, a dog walked up and sniffed his leg. Fatso pushed him away and threw an orange peel skywards. The dog caught it and ate it in one gulp. The dog looked at Fatso and wagged his tail for more. Fatso tossed him a slice of orange, and the dog snapped it up and licked his lips. "How come you like oranges, dog?" The dog blinked a pair of sad eyes and whined. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" Fatso laughed at his joke and offered the dog another slice. At that moment, a dim light came on inside Fatso's head. He saw that it was the sort of a fancy dog, a terrier or something with dog tags and a shiny collar, and it looked well-fed and healthy. In his neighborhood, the dogs were never licensed, and if they got sick, they were placed near the water heater until they got well. This dog looked like he belonged to rich people. Fatso cleaned his juicy, sticky hands on his pants and got to his feet. The light in his head grew brighter. It just might work. He called the dog, patted the muscular back, and bent down to check his license. "Great," he said. "There's an address." The dog's name was Roger, which struck Fatso as weird because he'd never heard of a dog with a human name. Dogs should have names like Boomer and Freckles and Queenie and Killer and Zero. Fatso planned to take the dog home and collect a reward. He would say he found Roger near the freeway. It would scare the daylights out of the owners, who would be so happy they would probably give him a reward. He felt bad about lying, but the dog was loose. And it might even really be lost because the address was 6 blocks away. Fatso stashed the rake and his sister's bike behind the bushes, tossing the orange peel every time Roger became distracted. Walked the dog to his house. He hesitated on the porch until Roger began to scratch the door with a muddy paw. Fatso had come this far, so he figured he might as well go through with it. He knocked softly. When no one answered, he rang the doorbell. The man, with a silky blue wardrobe and slippers, opened the door and seemed confused by the sight of his dog and the boy. "Sir," Fatso said, gripping Roger by the collar, "I found your dog by the freeway. His dog license saved his life." Fatso looked down at the dog, then up at the man. "He does, doesn't he?" The man stared at Fatso a long time before saying in a pleasant voice, "That's right." He pulled his robe tighter around him because of the cold and asked Fatso to come in. "So he was by the freeway?" "Uh-huh." "You bad Snoopy dog," said the man, wagging his finger. "You probably knocked over some trash cans too, didn't you?" Fatso didn't say anything. He looked around amazed by this house with the shiny furniture and a television as large as the front window at his house. Warm bread smells filled the air, and music, full of soft tinkling, floated in from another room. "Helen!" The man called to the kitchen. "We have a visitor." His wife came into the living room, wiping her hands on the dish towel and smiling. "And who have we here?" she asked, in the softest voice Fatso had ever heard. "This young man said he found Roger near the freeway." Fatso repeated his story to her while staring at the perpetual clock with a bell-shaped glass. This kind of his aunt got when she celebrated her 25th anniversary. The lady frowned and said, wagging her finger at Roger, "Oh, you're a bad boy. It was very nice of you to bring Roger home." And the man said, "Where do you live?" "By the vacant lot on Olive," he said. "You know, by the Brownies flower place?" The wife looked at her husband, then at Fatso. Her eyes twinkled triangles of light as she said, "Well, young man, you're probably hungry. How about a turnover?" "What do I have to turn over?" Fatso asked, thinking she was talking about yard work or something like turning trays of dried raisins. No, dear, it's a pastry." He took him by the elbow and guided him into the kitchen that sparkled with copper pans and bright yellow wallpaper. She guided him to the kitchen table and gave him a tall glass of milk and something that looked like an empanada. Steamy waves of heat escaped when he tore it in two. He ate with both eyes on the man and the woman, who stood arm in arm, smiling at him. They were strange, he thought, but nice. "That was good," he said after he finished the turnover. "Did you make it, ma'am?" "Yes, I did. Would you like another?" "No, thank you. I have to go home now." As Fatso walked to the door, the man opened his wallet and took out a bill. "This is for you," he said. "Roger is special to us, like a son." Fatso looked at the bill and knew he was in trouble. Not with these nice folks or with his parents, but with himself. How could he be so deceitful? The dog wasn't lost. It was just having fun Saturday walking around. "I can't take that." "You have to. You deserve it. Believe me," the man said. "No, I don't." "Now, don't be silly," said the lady. She took the bill from her husband and stuffed it into Fatso's shirt pocket. "You're a lovely child. Your parents are lucky to have you. Be good and come see us again, please." Fatso went out and the lady closed the door. Fatso clutched the bill with his shirt pocket. He felt like ringing the doorbell, but he knew they would refuse. He hurried away and at the end of the block pulled the bill from his shirt pocket. It was a crispy $20 bill. "Oh, man, I shouldn't have lied," he said under his breath as he started up the street like a zombie. He wanted to run to the church for Saturday confession, but it was past 4:30 when confession stopped. He returned to the bush where he had hidden the rake and his sister's bike and rode home slowly, not daring to touch the money in his pocket. At home, in the privacy of his room, he examined the $20 bill. He had never had so much money. It probably was enough money to buy a second-hand guitar. But he felt bad, like the time he stole the dollar from the secret fold inside his older brother's wallet. Fatso went outside and sat on the fence. "Yeah," he said, "I can probably get a guitar for $20. Maybe at the yard sale, things are cheaper." His mother called him to dinner. The next day he dressed for church without anyone telling him he was going to 8 o'clock mass. "I'm going to church, Mom," he said. His mother was in the kitchen cooking papayas and chorizos. A pile of tortillas lay warm under the dish towel. "Oh, and I'm so proud of you, son," she beamed, turning over the crackling papayas. His older brother, Lawrence, who was at the table reading the funnies, mimicked, "Oh, I'm so proud of you, my son," under his breath. At St. Teresa's, he sat near the front. When Father Jerry began by saying that we are all sinners, Fatso thought he looked right at him. Could he know? Fatso fidgeted with guilt. No, he thought, I only did it yesterday. Fatso knelt and prayed and sang, but he couldn't forget the man and the lady whose names he didn't even know, and the empanadas that they had given him. It had a strange name, but tasted really good. He wondered how they got rich, and how the doom clock worked. He had asked his mother once how his aunt's clock worked. He said it just worked, and that way the refrigerator works. It just did. Fatso caught his mind wandering and tried to concentrate on his sins. He said a Hail Mary and sang, and when the wicker basket came around, he stuck his hand reluctantly in his pocket and pulled out the $20 bill. He ignored it between his palms and dropped it into the basket. The grown-ups stared. He was a kid dropping a 20 in the basket while they were giving $3 or $4. There would be a second collection for St. Vincent de Paul, the lecturer announced. The wicker basket again floated in the pews, and this time the adults around him, given a second chance to show their charity, dug into their wallets and purses and dropped 5s and 10s. This time Fatso tossed in the grimy quarter. Fatso felt better after church. He went home and played football in the front yard with his brothers and the neighbor kids. He felt cleared of the wrongdoing and was so happy that he played one of his best games of football ever. On one play, he tore his good pants, which he knew he shouldn't have been wearing. For a second, while he was examining the hole, he wished he hadn't given the $20 away. Man, I could have bought some Levi's, he thought. He pictured his $20 being sent to buy church candles. He pictured a priest buying an armful of flowers with his money. Fatso had to forget about getting a guitar. He spent the next day playing soccer in his good pants, which were now his old pants. But that night, during dinner, his mother said she remembered seeing an old bass guitar in the last time she had cleaned out his father's closet. It's a little dusty, his mom said, serving her favorite enchiladas, but I think it'll work. Grandpa says it works. Fatso's ears perked up. That was the same kind the guy in Los Lobos played. Instead of asking for a guitar, he waited for his mother to offer it to him, and she did, while gathering the dishes from the table. No, Mom, I'll do it, he said, hugging her. I'll do the dishes forever if you want. It was the happiest day of his life. No, it was the second happiest day of his life. The happiest was when his grandfather, Lupe, placed the guitar in, which was nearly as huge as a washtub, in his arms. Fatso ran a thumb down the strings, which vibrated in his throat and chest. It sounded beautiful, deep and eerie. A pumpkin smile widened on his face. Okay, Hirio, now you put your fingers like this, said his grandfather, smelling the tobacco and aftershave. He took Fatso's fingers and placed them on the string. Fatso strummed a chord on the guitar, and the bass resounded in his chest. The guitar was more complicated than Fatso imagined, but he was confident that after a few more lessons, he could start a band that someday would play on the American Bandstand for the dancing crowds.